the flip of the poles going, you see, but it's gradually doing it, changing. So when I look at all the science, it really bothers me. I get really worried about it, and I think I should know more, a lot about science. It's frightening of the things that are happening in that, but then you have to look at that and make preparations of what you have to do in order to prepare for those. It's better to be prepared, than not to. So I used to just kind of let it go, but now I go into it and find out really what's making things work, and that's what everybody really should look at. Look at the working things that you do with science, and that begins at the classrooms with the younger ones. So a lot of things I'm trying to develop for the youth is some of the things that may appeal to them. If you make a happy instruction that are good, then they'll get the students to really lock into them and work at them in that sense. So that's what I'm doing. Sometimes when I work just within the local area, I feel like a Lone Ranger going at it alone, and all these things happen. I can't get to everything, and as I get older, I can't move fast enough in the areas that I want to cover. So this can help as we spread knowledge to each other, then the others will take up in that and be able to develop in that sense. So it's kind of ongoing for me, just going looking at accumulating things, and I'm in a good position now to take them and take the research stuff and begin to really work at them and be able to develop things for meetings like this, and also for the classroom systems, and so that the age and get older, to me it's beneficial now, as I used to worry about that, getting older, and that I still feel young at heart and stuff. But those, are very important. And things that are happening here, with all the knowledge there that you have there, if you put them all together, I think will be a force that can make changes. And that's what needs to be done, is to unite, share these things. Again, although I accumulated lots of it, I still need to learn more. I have really gone out in a global type of stuff, look at what other things are doing, like India, looking at that. It's a good area to really do research, because a lot of things that are going there is going to happen to us as they become overcrowded. And a long time ago, when the Ocheti Shakuni was developing, it laid down laws, social laws, that you cannot have a child, right? You have to wait 4 years to have a child. So every 4 years you could have a child. And that was pretty well regulated until the reservation times. And that was done to make the tribe into 7 members, to 7 divisions, so on and so forth, and not to really spread it without controlling a lot of stuff. And so in that way, I'm kind of looking at that, and if we employ on that today, we'll be able to make some social reforms in the end as we look at the things that happen. But there's much happening on the reservations. I'm distracted by all these things that are happening and try to cover them. So just like a guy trying to plug a dam, you have 10 fingers and 10 holes and you got no water, nothing. So you're struggling to get everything, you can't. That's why if we unite, we'll have more hands to fix the problems that we have. These presentations here, I'll try to have available. I'll try to get these printed, but I was unable. But I'll either leave the thing in a flash drive, so people that have flash drive, they can go ahead and take it and put it in their system. But these papers, the first one I read, that was kind of development stage, but the information there is good. You can look at it. And like I said, I lost the citations when the virus hit our campus. It wiped out some of the things that I had. And, I was too slow in trying to get them off the desktop when they warned that this happened. So I lost a lot of citations that I'm working on, but those will be restored in it. And as you read through it, those will be there probably next time, or just call the University of do that. And it's important, citations. I used to rely totally on oral tradition, but you need to gather the oral sources and write them. That's the way we beat some of the law cases. And the Stalin is a good example of how we helped Yellow Thunder Camp. When AIM was kicked off the Black Hills region, when they called their camp the Yellow Thunder Camp, they wanted to stay there to do the religious practices. Because there's so much turmoil, the Forest Service allowed them 1 year. After 1 year, they tried to kick them out, saying they trashed the area. And they said, who are you to come there? You know, they never belonged to you in the first place because other tribes were there, you just ran them out. So what's the difference? And I said, kick you guys out. And so we've been there a long time, so she said, prove it. And much of their chagrin that a lot of those oral sources are not published. But we published it then in the Star Knowledge, and those were taken to help the Yellow Thunder Camp, showing that our people were there long before the tribes were. And again, you take that, the 72-year wobble, and you take that and you times it by the occupation of a certain stars or constellations. You look at the degrees it occupies that space, and you multiply it by 72. Then you come up with a date when those ceremonies began. So using the 72 wobble and that 50-degree space of Chashasha in the sky, 50 degrees times 72, 3,600 years ago, that's when that conjoinment of the sun and that constellation occurred. And just took the date 1984 and subtracted from that, the 72, 36 from that came up with, in 1984, the date when our people occupied Black Hills, 1616 BC. So a lot of them like that can be used if you write up the resources. And I was just kind of going through the oral tradition about the creation. Those can be dated. The coming of the White Buffalo Cat meeting is dated to about 1000 AD. Once you came there, it can be proved by the alignments of the Dipper and by the positions that Chashasha positioned. And that's 36 years ago. That's when the 7 council fires were being contemplated, being formed, and also things like that, you know. You can use oral tradition and put them in the same frame as science, and then you come up with some comparisons in that. So I believe my time is kind of coming to an end. Anybody have time? I lost my watch here. In my excitement here in my room there, you know, my timepiece I left, that's
It's 10:45.
Huh?
It's 10:45.
Okay. So I think I should go about what, 11, so I got maybe 15 minutes, and you have questions, you know, you can maybe, I can field questions, you know, there are times that you guys want to. You know, it's good to know that I did everything precisely good, so everybody understands that perfectly, so that's good. Yes?
How do the students that you're teaching these scientific and oral traditions, stories about, how do they receive them, and do they feel hopeful that this can help?
Yes, a person, there's a guy by the name William Sullivan that wrote a book called Secrets of the Inca. In there he told about how he cracked the code of the translations. And then he also came to us, and this was at the Minneapolis, where he created the star observatory for them based on Sati stuff. And in there he said, the coming of the White Buffalo Cat, you don't have to say long, long time ago. You can say 3,600 years ago he came on that date, 1616 BC, somewhere around there. So you can now give a date, and you can match that scientifically. And it gives the people something to really bring out. And it also provides for them more information that they learn from that case. So that's what I learned, that oral tradition can match that. And even in the non-Indian world, everybody heard about Troy, the Trojan Wars. And the man by the Schliemann found where the city of Troy was. He's an amateur archaeologist. He had a lot of money, so he started digging up the place. He was looking for a wall that could put several chariots on it. And when he found that, that was Troy. And the dating was almost the same. So he was able to show the data, and he based that on Homer tales. When Homer told the stories, he'd go out and try to figure the date of that. And usually the dating of writing came when Homer was telling stories. And writing was invented about about just shortly before the time of Christ, about maybe a couple thousand years ago, 3,000 years ago, when the Greeks and other maritime merchants start tracking what the goods they sold, and they started mathematics. And then in the career for another thing, they dig out writing. And then those that told stories also start writing them down. So now we get down to us, and then we go back and find out when. It's always important to the non-Indian world when it begins. We're not really concerned with that, but we have to be able to produce dates in order to comply with what they have. It helps in courts. When we ran circles around Don Robinson's date of Lakota Internet Black Hills of 1776, we said no, 36 years ago. So it boggled them. They tried to prove it wrong, they couldn't do it. So it helped us out tremendously in that sense. Okay, anything else more? Yeah, a lot of these things, all these we have to understand the beginning of our tribes too. It's important to know them because those are taken to court, you see. Anytime archaeological remains is taken, then it violates the NAGPRA laws. Sometimes we have to go to court and prove that it belonged to our tribe. They say, no, you guys are North Carolina this time. No, we have Black Hills prior to that time. We have proof. Where's the proof? A lot of the people sat in the Black Hills, looked at the alignment of the constellations with the sun in the Black Hills and dated those. So those are something that we produced in court, and able to prove our existence. And we always have to prove our existence. The onus is always put on us in order to prove things. So we have to be able to take that on and switch the other way, put the onus on the government and other corporations that come to seize the lands and all that. One thing that I'm working on, and I'll probably talking about that when Alan I comes, is that idea of plenary policies of the government, how that rips apart our treaties. And we go back to the doctrine of discovery, showing that that's all false. In that sense, how we were there before the nation was born. So our right to exist and our right of owning lands, it begins there. Then the United States comes along, wipes that off. So I'm working on that piece, and I'll be presenting some stuff on the doctrine of discovery, how they're wrong. And we're still going by Anglo-Saxon laws in the courts. That's what we lose all the time in that. So that's what I'm kind of trying to get. And I teach a class called Tribal Law Treaties in the Government. In there, I'm trying to look at where all these originated. Treaties were, that all leads back to that, the discovery doctrine. It goes all the way back to the divine rights of the kings. And before that time. And that the power of the Pope is the one that grants those. And the separation of church and state, when that occurred, and when all those church doctrines in the law should be wiped out. And it puts us on an even keel with the court system. So things like that are we're working on to try to understand those. So we'll be able to give our people a chance, just like equal laws. We're beginning to turn the tide in that because well, things are developing there, that Child Welfare Act, that we're beginning to gain ground on it, to show that we're a sovereign nation and that we're able to dictate where those people go. We also have to look at the Mann Acts, which the government says the court decide or the policeman decides when you, before you reach 18, going back from there, that you have no choice as you're growing up, if you're below 18, to make your own decision. They don't allow you to do that based on their laws. Well, we know that at the age of 7, the infant or child has a right to go. If the parents split up what band he belongs to, where he can go. He makes that choice and he honors that. You take a white man's coat or not. He has to be 18 in order to make that decision. So things like that we're dealing with and try to understand those and prepare our tribe, because it's going to really get tough in the future as bodies are violated by the plenary acts of the laws, and the Congress is giving that power to the president, and so on and so forth. So those are the things that we're dealing with, and again that we're going to be these to generate interest in others. With that, thank you for listening.